Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I think I'm going to start, I don't know how long this will take me to achieve, but I'm going to start working on my no-spill oil container. I have been inspired by many plans out there. This one's from Dave, the Mini Machine Shop. He offers his plans for free. His is epic. He's got a CAD drawing for you. It's all laid out. It's got threaded top to it. It's got the no-spill areas in it. It's got a gasket. He's got it all drawn out for you. I'm not going to make this one. I'm going to make my own, inspired from this one and several others. There was several people that have made them. Mr. Pete made one out of like a tuna can. Maddie's Workshops made them. I forget the other YouTubers, but if you search for like no spill oil pot or oil container, there's a handful of them out there. But as a machinist, as a hobby machinist, I don't want to have a plastic jug laying around. I want to have a proper metal container that I made that will hold oil and be no spill. Now some of the designs, you know, you've got your basic parts of it, right? You want a wide base. Let's draw a little. This is going to be just sketch one. No spill. Draft one. This won't be the final design, but I want to take elements of all of them that I've found. One of them is going to be a wide base, at least 3 inches round, and I've got material for that. So I want the base to be 3 inches round. I want it to fit. Let me grab a brush. Okay. These are my acid brushes. A little tip on these. One thing you want to do is give these an extra crimp when you get them. These brushes just tend to fall out of these things. I don't think they're crimped all that well, but might as well just give them a little tweak when you get them. Here's another one. You can kind of see it's just not crimped very well. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. It's about using these. This is the acid brushes that I have, kind of a standard height. But so I need the height of this to be able to accommodate these, kind of like I have on this one, where I can grab the end of the handle and not be reaching down in and get oil on my fingers and that sort of thing. So the height, I'm thinking, you know, the brushes themselves are 5.5 inches overall with the bristles. So I don't want the height of this to be any more than 5, probably 4.5 inches tall. So let's put a couple numbers here. And then the height, you know, whatever the height ends up being from the base, 4.5 inches tall. So those are just the general overall dimensions, but I want a wide base. So what I'm thinking is I can take some tubing that I have and I can make it 4.5 inches tall. Well, it would need to be like 3.5 inches tall, I'm thinking. So if we have, you know, 3.5 inches, and then I start making a top that's another inch in size, what I'm thinking is I can thread the top into my tube. And the design that I'm going for, so essentially it would be very similar to what Dave's got, but let's just say I come up 3.5 inches up tall. That'll be the pot, so to speak. So it'll be 3 inches wide by 3.5 inches tall, kind of square. 3 or 3.5 inches tall. And then the top I'm going to make out of a solid billet of aluminum. I can make it up to 4.5 inches, maybe 5 inches. But I want to start, you know, tapering something to where it's got a nice top on it. and it'll have tapered, tapered holes here, and there'll be a little bit of a hole here. And then this will be a solid billet with some threads. I would thread this inside and use, so I would do some single point threading. Ooh, you guys are way off. I would do some single point threading to attach the top and the bottom. Now, the top would also be, so it's going to have a conical nature to it. So it'll have a, a top, and then it'll have kind of a cone. Well, the outside will be solid, and then there'll be threads here. That will be all threaded to go into this piece here. But then underneath, I think what I would do is create a lip, and then I would use some of the tubing, the aluminum tubing that I have, and come down all the way to the bottom. And what I would do, I took inspiration from, there's another, I wish I had the link, but he's out there. There's a guy that made a no-spill oil pot, and what he did was, at the bottom of this, he just notched out some reliefs. So at the bottom, your oil can get in here, but you have maximum kind of oil penetration down underneath. Your oil can get up into this tube, keeps your chips, kind of everything isolated, and you're able to, if you spill it, all of the oil, you don't want to put too much oil in these things, but everything will be captured within this. So essentially, to finish this drawing out, you would have a tube, comes down to about the middle, and then you'd have your teeth kind of notched out through that tube, and then this would almost touch the bottom, if not touch the bottom of the base of your oil pot. And then again, this will have a, I don't know, 1/4 to a 1/2 inch thick base to it. And this base would actually, I would JB weld it into this top, because I wouldn't want this base removable. So that's kind of the idea that I'm going for. One other thing that I do like about this one that's worth mentioning is I like this lip. I can kind of scrape, I don't usually scrape up there, but I kind of like that lip being there, but I won't be able to, that'll be kind of difficult to do. I think if I was able to just do some tapers up here, just do something like that, and then have a through hole down into this tube here that will attach, I think that's going to work out just fine. So essentially, this is how that will look. So that's my initial sketch, intro to what my plans are for my epic oil container, using inspiration from Maddie's workshop, Mr. Pete, Dave at the Little Machine Shop, and a few others that are out there. So with that, I'm going to try to sketch this up a little bit better, and we'll just get started making this thing. There we go. That is my initial design. This is subject to change, as all of my designs are, but feel free to pause it, take a look. Got some general measurements. We're going to see how this turns out. Based off of how this turns out, you may want to modify these measurements, but I think based off of what I have, a 3-inch base with a 3-inch, 3.5-inch height, this will be 2.5 inches, but that's going to work out fine because this will just be sitting in here. I'll be able to grab that. Plus, I'm going to lose a 1/2 inch for my threading, 1/2 inch threading here. So it's going to end up being a little shorter overall by the time I get my threading, my base plate mounted in there, and everything else done. It's going to be a perfect height. I guarantee it. So, with that said, this is my Dee's No Spill Oil Pot version 1.0. I'm going to take you along for the ride, and we're going to get this thing built. Well, these are the materials that I'm going to use. The base will be made out of this 3-inch tube, and I'm pretty sure I can get some internal threads on there. I've never done that before, but we're going to give it a shot. The total height of this will be 3 inches. I have plenty of material, so we'll cut off a piece of that 3 inches tall. The top is going to be made from this billet, and again I need 2 inches tall of that. That'll give me a total of 5 inches complete tall. I may make it 2.5 inches because I do want a 1/2 inch set of threads here, and that's going to take away over here. This 3 inches is going to be a 1/2 inch down and then a 1/4 inch on the bottom, really just giving me 2.25 inches of total liquid area inside here. So I don't know, I could make it 3 inches, 3 minus 1/2 inch for threads. That would give me, you know, 3, 5.5 total minus a 1/4. Maybe I'll go ahead and just so I have some extra material, I'm going to go ahead and make this 3 inches. So I'll make this 3 inches as well. So 3 inches from that, 3 inches from this, and then I'll start working on my material. I'm not going to cut anything. Order of operations, I'm still learning. But I'm going to work on the threads before I do anything else, because if the threads aren't right for up here, then there's no point in moving forward. So my idea is to first do my internal threads using this piece. Just get those to where I like them. And then I'm going to flip everything over. I'm going to do my external threads using this piece, and then I will test as I go. I will test my materials to make sure that things will thread together. In addition, it would be nice if I could leave some relief for maybe an O-ring at the top. I'm not sure if that's necessary. If I do a 1/2 inch thread, I think if I knock that over, some oil might seep through there, but I don't know. We'll think about it. I think I could always put where the threads meet in here. I could always undercut and stretch an O-ring over that to kind of seal that in. So that's something I can work on as one of the last final steps. And finally, this is my inch aluminum tube. That's going to go under here. And what I'm going to do is leave a nipple or a shoulder on the base of this top where this will JB weld into there, and I'll get my total length, whatever's needed, once I have all this stuff put together. And then we'll cut some reliefs in the bottom of that, and that should complete. Well, there's one other thing. I need to make a base, so I need a thin another cutoff of this piece that will have a shoulder. So it'll be anywhere from a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch. I'll probably cut it 1/2 inch to 3/4 tall. But then it will have a 1/4 inch shoulder on it as well to slide down over this. And then I will JB weld that as well. So that will be that'll be sealed on permanently. I don't see the need to thread both ends of it and worry about O-rings and that sort of thing. And then we'll clean up the OD. And hopefully we got a really cool functional oil pot. So that's the materials I'm going to use, and that is the plan to get started. Before we get started, something that I'm always continuing to try to improve on is order of operations. Doesn't mean I'll get this one right, but I do want to make an attempt to think about which parts I want to make first, second, third, fourth, fifth, so on and so forth. I think what I want to do is first work on the base, my inside threading. I haven't done any inside threading before, and I think working on that first, and I actually have more of that material, is going to be the best operation for me to start with. So number one, I don't know if you can see that, but number one, I'm going to do the base threading. We'll see how that comes out. We're also going to cut that down to 3.5 inches in case I mess up. I've got a little bit more to work with. I could, but I can't chuck this up and have that sticking out so far. So I really need to cut this down initially to even work on it. So that's going to be the first thing, but I am going to start with 3.5 inches since I'm going to, well, total height is 3.5 inches, but I think I'm going to start, because I'm going to lose a 1/2 inch at the top for threads and another 1/4 to 1/2 at the bottom for my, but that's okay. The lower this ends up being, the more stable it will be. This thing should never really need to hold a whole lot of cutting fluid. If I start with 4 inches, that's going to give me an extra 1/2 inch to work with. Trim the faces. If I'm shooting for 3.5 inches, it's not critical, but I think maybe I'll start with 4 inches. Again, the reason being I haven't done any inside threading, and if I really mangle it up and mess it up, that gives me extra material to work with. So I'm going to start with a 4-inch piece. Once that's complete, I think the next thing that I want to work on would be the top. And how I'm going to do that, I think I'm going to try, I'll probably cut this on the bandsaw before I get started chucking it up, because it is a bit large to be sticking out and working out here with threading. So I will cut that down. This top is going to be 2 inches minus a 1/2 inch for the threads. So I'll probably cut that to 2 inches, 2.5 inches. I'll cut it 2.5 inches so I've got some extra material, because I will have to face it off. Number 2, top. Start with the 2.5 inch piece. Now keep in mind, the side view, I should draw that out. There'll be a side view. If you've got this, you got your tapers. Then I'll have my threaded portion. And then I will have a lip for this tube to recess onto and JB weld. So this will be all threaded here. This will actually be recessed down inside there. So this would all be my threads. So yeah, so I need that extra lip on that. So yeah, I'll start with 2.5 inch piece. That way when I do my threading, I'm going to thread I'm going to thread about 3/4 of an inch. I'm shooting for like a 1/4 inch lip down here for that tube. It would be this tube here. And that would That'll give me some materials to work with. So first thing I'm going to do is my internal threading. Second thing I'm going to do is my outside threading, and I'm going to make sure they fit together. If I don't get those two right, there's no sense in making all the rest of the pieces. Once those things are correct, then we can move on to creating the base plate. Number 3, base. We can create the tube. Number 4, tube. And number 5, assemble. I suppose I should work in 2A, 2B, or 2.1 tapers, top tapers, boring, and all that stuff. I don't want to mess with any of that though until I get my threading done. Something to consider if I get these threaded, I don't want to chuck it up on these threads and ruin it. But I will have this lip underneath. So if I go a 1/2 inch, I'll have plenty of material on that lip to chuck up before I make my final dimension. So this will be oversized, so I have something to chuck up while I'm working on my tapers. So anyway, order of operations, so you've got material to work with, then you can clean it up later, and I think that will work. Okay, let's get started. That clamp trick really does help. Keeps your material from rolling around and it just makes it a little more safe. So at any rate, there's our starting piece. I'm going to get that faced off and level and on both sides, and then we can begin. So we'll get you mounted up over here in the lathe. get this turned around. Now that we've got a flat machined in, we should be able to start working on, now that we've got, like I said, now that we got a flat on this side, we can clean this side up and we'll have perpendicular ends and we'll be ready to move forward. So this is warm just from that operation, so I'm going to let this cool down before we finish this up. Alright, we're going to set the lathe up for threading. I decided I'm going to go with I was going to do 18 thread pitch. Not sure what that was. 18 thread pitch. But I can't do 18 thread pitch. So we're going to do a 20 instead. It's a pretty fine pitch, but that's what I decided I'm going to go with. So we need to set the lathe up with that gear pattern for number 20, which is 72, 33, blank, a spacer, 80, a spacer, and 40 gear teeth. So what we got to do is take the side off, get this set up, and I've already written out, I kind of like to leave my gearing over here. I write down the original, and then I write down what I'm after, and that way I've got everything labeled and ready to put back the way it was originally for normal projects. So we'll get started. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do is take this cover off, and then we're going to check our current gears, and we're going to get those laid out on the other side. The last one I did, I went through this very thoroughly, but I also messed up my drawing. This time I'm going to get that drawing right. So the first gear, so like I described before, there's this side and this side, AB, the middle one CD, and the bottom is EF. We're going to go for the 20 thread pitch. We've already written that down what we have. So what we need to do is get the gearing switched over. So the original, we need to have, well, we need a 72 and a 33 on top. All the gears except for one are already here. We just got to move them around to get a different ratio so we can get our TP of 20. 40 is the only one. There's a spacer at the bottom. The 40 will end up being at the bottom on the F position. But let's go ahead and get these out of here. Write down what's coming out, and and we'll go from there. Really. 13. That'll work. I also need to get my 7mm. There's a lot of 7mm on this lathe. Oh, maybe that one's 8. It's even smaller than 7. Huh. Well, guess we'll use a little wrench. Also, we can swing this arm down. Let's get that done too. Can't remember which one it is. Might be this one here. Nope. Huh. Barely get that in there. I still need a notch out for that. This is kind of a pain here. But there. Now we can swing this down. Careful, these are like C nuts. Don't want to lose those. Let's get a towel. Put the wrenches back up here. Maybe I should put this in a magnet so we don't lose them. It's a good idea in case I need that. And that. Okay, so first one to come out of there. If we can get it. Is 84 and 33. We will need the 33. But let's write that down over here. 84, 33. The next one, we got to get this middle off. Have to use this. So this one on the outside is 24. So we'll get that written down over here. And before we can get this gear off, we need to take this bottom gear off. Maybe. Of course, now I've got it all. I probably should have loosened them all up before we started. Oh, great. There we go. Well, if I can get it off of there. Okay, and this one is 96. So that's on the bottom outside. E. F is spacer. So D, the final one, this one we're going to have to reuse. It should be, I'm guessing, 80. And it is. This is 80. So we'll need that. All right. Already see a problem. I don't have a 72 tooth gear. I'm gonna pause it here and regroup and see what I got. All right, we got a change of plans. Conveniently, I'm gonna email them, but I don't have a 72 tooth gear. So I'll email them and see what they say. It's almost been a year, but hey, I didn't get a part that I should have. I can't do certain thread pitches because I don't have a 72 tooth gear. So what are we gonna do? We're going metric because it doesn't matter. It's a one-of-a-kind piece that I'm making. So we are going to do a 1.5 pitch metric, 1.5 pitch, and there is the pattern for that: 60-40, spacer 80, spacer 50, and that's this is the information I got for 1.5. It's right here. So 60-40, spacer 80, spacer 50. So we're switching it up. We're going to do metric. That's fine. But I am going to email them and say, hey, where's my 72 tooth gear? I can't do all the threads that I should be able to. Anyway, those are the kinds of things you're going to run into working with these machines. So we're just going to do metric. All right, so we got all of our gears. We got our 2 spacers on the bottom, which would be C and E. We got our 50 gear, our 80 gear, our 40 on the inside, and our 60 on the outside. There's a little bit of play. This is the trick. You just throw some paper in here when you're spacing out your gearing. And then finally, we tighten up There's a name for this. I apologize to those that already told me what this is. This arm here. Tighten that up. And we should be able to get our piece of paper out of there. So, that is now geared up for 1.5" thread pitch. So, really what we need to do is chuck up our material, do a scratch pass, do some testing, size it all up, make sure that we're good to go. So let me get some of this cleaned up. We'll set you up on the other side and we'll continue filming. But again, I know I didn't use any lighting. Hopefully you were able to see all that. Maybe this will help. But yeah, there's spacer, and then we got the 50 on the bottom, 80, 60 on this outside, and 40 on the inside you can't see. And it's all geared to the motor. So, I'm going to get the cover back on, and let's get started. So we're just going to go for it. This is our workpiece. Get it tightened down okay. I don't want to stretch out the aluminum, but I do want to tighten it down. Okay. And last thing I want to do is mark how deep I'm going to go. I think I'm just going to go, I don't know, maybe I'll just go 3/4 of an inch. That way I got plenty. Don't need to go any farther than that. And that'll give me some extra room to play with. So, this is where it gets tricky. I gotta do some hand-eye coordination. I gotta turn it off. But I think what I'm gonna do is this little scratch pass. And then when I get where I'm going, I back it out, bring it in, touch off, do it again. The tricky part is I got to do forward and reverse in order to do this. So again, this is the first time I've done inside threading. It's going to be a little tricky. I probably won't get it right, but let's just see how this goes. Okay, here we go. We've got it touched off. All we got to do is get everything going and come up to my 3/4 mark. I'm going to back it in, and then I'm just going to turn it off, and then we'll kick it in reverse, and we'll keep going. But we'll do a scratch pass first in order to see what it looks like. that was rough. This is my very first time doing some inside threading, but I believe I've got decent threads in there. Chattered a little bit. I didn't video the whole thing. It was taking me a long time. With this lathe, you gotta go forward and back. I'm checking the threads. They got some decent peaks on there. There's gonna be plenty of thread material in here, I think. Now it's time to work on my outside diameter piece, but before that I do that, I'm going to put a quick chamfer and clean up this edge a little bit. I'm taking the threading tool out, internal threading tool. I used the boring bar that came, the internal boring thread tool that came with the lathe, so I didn't have another boring bar. Do that deliberately. Do this piece here. All right. Well, that's what we're going with. I can go back in here maybe and cut a relief if I need it. But for now, it's not perfect. I overshot a little bit on one, so you can see some threads in there, but you'll never see any of that. As long as I can get my top piece screwed in there, we're going to be good to go. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to take this out, clean it up, and then we'll cut down our disc for the top piece, and let's just do the threading for that. If I can't get the two pieces to thread together, there's no sense in moving forward any further. So what I'm going to do is get that stuff cut out, and then we'll start on that piece. All right, there is the beginning of my workpiece. Turn that off. As you saw I had to get my, I was thinking I could flip these over, but that's not how these work. If you look, there's a curve on these. So you can't just flip these over. These are my inside jaws to clip and clamp pipe or smaller material. And these are my alternate jaws to clamp larger stock, be safer. Anyway, that turned really well. And that right there is one of the best finishes on aluminum I've ever made, even with the lower gearing. So I'm going to stop here because I need to do some calculations in order to get my threaded pipe on here. I need to turn that down a little bit, but I want to be careful. I don't want to overdo this and mess it up. So I need to do some calculations and figuring out exactly what diameter to turn that down to, because I don't think I can just turn it down. It'll be too big. Anyway, I'll bring you back. And so I average this out, and this is 2.745 is the major diameter of the internal threads. Let's try that again. $2.745. Trust me, I did this a bunch. 2.746. 2.743. Any rate, I'd rather it be a little bit more, a couple thou more, because I can always run some emery cloth or a little sandpaper and clean that down. So 2.745 is going to be my starting diameter. Now, why do you ask? Why? How'd you figure that? Well, that's going to end up being the peaks. So when I start turning down, cutting my threads, I want that to be 2.745 max for my peaks, and then I can maybe sand a thou or two off of those with some emery cloth in order to get my final piece to fit. All right, almost messed up, but I'm learning. I want this to be 2.8. I know that might be a little strong for my major diameter of these threads, minimum, but this is 2.745, and I'm figuring about a 50 to 60 thou difference with the peaks and the valleys here. I did some looking online, read some charts, and that's what I'm going to go with, 2.8 starting diameter. And if for some reason that's too much and I can't get my piece on there, I can take just a little bit off and rethread it. That's what we're going to go for. Right now we're at 2.831. So what we need to do is take just a little bit more off. I do not want to overshoot this. Before we go crazy here. It's right on the edge. Where are we at? Come on. There we are. 2.2, so I was taking 10 thou off. Right there. Just double check. .801. I'm going to go with that. Like I said, I can use emery cloth or something to fine tune that, but I think that's where I need to be. So now we got to begin our threading operation. Let's get this out of here. It's a big mess. And let's get our threading tool in here. There we go. And now we got to pay attention, because what we're going to be doing is engaging the threading tool, bringing it over, and then I got to back it off and I got to shut it off. So it's time for me to pay attention and think. So wish me luck. There's a scratch pass. Let's check it. Looks to be good. So, here we go. Still got more to come off of there, but we're getting there. All right, everybody. So this is way too long, but I have a reason for that. I need a lip on the bottom of this, and I wanted some extra material to where I could play with and make sure I'm okay. So what I want to do now is I need to change all my gearing out. We got to do a test fit first, but then I need to change my gearing out, and that way I can flatten off some of this, and I need to do an undercut here. Maybe I should have done that before, but I didn't want to disengage my feed screw because I've been doing all these operations of trying to get this thread on there. So at any rate, let's go ahead and give this a test. I used the calipers. We're pretty consistent all the way across here. I think my internal threads are they aren't perfect, but I think it's going to work. I got nearly a half an inch of thread engagement through here. So let's go ahead and get this tested on here. And it goes on very easily, and it kind of binds up right in there, and I think it's the internal threads here. I could go ahead and put this back in the chuck and maybe try to thread it again, but I mean, that's, if I go too much farther, it could get stuck on there. But again, I think it's the internal threads of this. But that's plenty of threads there. I would like to be able to turn this down and then test my threads up here, but I'm gonna have to disengage it. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Before we take everything out and I change the gears, I'm gonna go ahead and disengage the threading. If I need to, I can line it back up, re-engage it in order to do some more threading if I need to. But what I really need to do is take off I need to do an undercut, and then I need to take off all but, I don't know, about a ½ inch of threads. Yeah. And so I got a ½ inch of threads on there for my part. That's going to end part 1 of this series. I want to get these two pieces married up. So let's go ahead and get that going, and we're going to do an undercut, and then we're going to clean up some of this. It doesn't have to be all the way down to my final diameter, just enough that it's clearing the inside of that tube. So let's get started. Final test fit. I do have some burrs to knock down. Come on, baby. Uh-oh, got some burrs in there galling me up. We're really close. I don't want to take any more off of the threads, but I need to clean it up. We're really close. do this too. All right, this is going to finish up part number 1. Let's do a test fit. I believe I have my top and my bottom created. This isn't easy to do on a mini lathe where you got to change out the gears. It's messy, but I think I have it. So I've got plenty of threads here. I've got my blank for the top here. I've got plenty of threads here. What I want to do is see these two marry up to the top. So let's give this a final test fit. Hopefully it doesn't bind up with the aluminum. If there's a burr in there, it'll bind up. You can't even get this thing apart. Let's just see how we are doing. It's going on there nicely. Oh, it's binding up a little bit there. Not a big deal. And there we go. I don't want to crank it down or might not be able to get it apart. There we go. Wow. That took the better part of a day. But I'm learning. I'm doing better. I wouldn't call this a beginner project. All my other stuff's been beginner projects. Right now, I'm on intermediate projects. Here we go. This is going to conclude part 1 of Dee's no spill oil container. Original design. Inspired by others. Look at that. There we go. I'm happy with that. Hard to complain. Alright, thanks for watching. If you haven't, please subscribe so you can see part 2 and the final product. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.